Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Victoria Mensch. Victoria, welcome.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm very happy to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Yes. So Victoria Mensch, as you said, I actually spent most of my career in corporate environment, more than 25 years in high tech, mostly in Silicon Valley. I worked in large global companies. I worked in startups. I ran a boutique consulting firm, all dedicated to innovation and entrepreneurship and emerging technologies. And now I'm actually paying a lot of attention to a passion project of mine, which is around the burnout, but mostly about work-life harmony. So what does it really mean? So I actually founded a company called Silicon Valley Executive Academy, where we dedicate our time teaching, how did I call it? Burnout-proof leadership and growth strategies. Yes, but it's all about work-life harmony, really.
Okay, well, that sounds good. The normal phrase, shall we say, that people use is work-life balance. So why did you go with work-life harmony instead?
I believe that harmony allows for much more flexibility. When I hear balance, it's for me, it's kind of like a scale, right? So if you put more on this side of the scale, then it's less on this side of the scale, and vice versa. So it's kind of a dichotomy. You either have that or that, and somehow you balance it. And harmony allows for actually much more flexible approach. And the other thing is that there is more to life than work and life. So for us to really feel fulfilled and flourished, right? The sense of really high, a kind of high level of performance as well. There are all other different parts that play into that work, and it's not just work as an activity, but it's kind of more of a there's a financial stability, which is important, right? So we want to have financial stability. It's very hard to flourish without that. But there's also a sense of purpose, right? So do I feel actually that it has meaning for us? It actually achieves some bigger purpose. So that plays into that. What is life? I don't know. But vitality is a very big component of our well-being as well. Yeah, so you put all this together, and it's not just work, it's not just life. There are all these different components that have to come in a harmony for us to really feel that happy, right? So that's the reason why we use harmony instead of balance.
Okay, thank you for that. I do want to ask you about your expertise, but before I do, I find that when people have expertise in these types of areas, it's either because they're sort of a natural at it and they want to share what they know, or it's the case that they've actually struggled with it before and as a result have had to learn coping mechanisms, which they then share with people. So, in terms of where you're at, which one of those two, if it is just the two, would you say that you are?
My case is really interesting because I started my career as a psychologist. So right off of high school, I wanted to be a psychologist. I went ahead and I got my master's degree. I got my PhD in psychology. And then I started practicing. And about a year in, very, very short period of time, I stepped back and I said, I cannot take one more day of that. Um, and I made a mistake. I followed my passion, but I made a mistake. This is not what I wanted. I cannot do that. And then I
Can I ask
switched, I
why?
pivoted. Well, give me a second. I switched and I pivoted to corporate career. I thought it for sure I made a mistake. It's because of my passion does not lie there. So I pivoted to corporate career. And of course, what do you think happened? 2, 3 years in, it's like, oh, I made another mistake. This is not what I want. And I went to semiconductor industry, so it was like 360 degrees, well, or 180 degrees opposite from the psychology. So it's as inhumane as you can possibly think about. There's like no human elements in there at all. So, and I lived through a couple of those before I realized that it's not really about the circumstances. It's not really about the job. It's not really about the culture of the company and so on and so forth. It's really burnout. So I learned the words. Oh, this is what it is, and I went through a couple of cycles of those and developed my practices and my tools. And as I said, it's a passion project. So I want to share that experience with people, and that experience based in my academic knowledge in my experience being executive in very stressful high-tech environment, and also my personal experience of getting through the burnout.
Okay, that's it's really interesting. Because I also have a, what should we say, a layman's interest in the topic of psychology. So
Mhm.
before I ask you about the burnout stuff, which I do want to get to, one of the more fascinating lessons you learn in your psychology education, would you share perhaps what one of the things that's interested to you?
Well, I was interested in counseling, so I worked with people a lot. And one of the points that I think that I carry forward through my whole life is that how much we are responsible for our own well-being. So how much of what you do and your activities really come from making a decision. So we're not broken. I think that's a big point. Like I'm not broken after reading all the self-help book and psychology and everything. It's really making a decision and following on that decision. And a lot of it is really in the mindset shift, right? Internally, we have so much power. We are very powerful human beings. We just don't have the tools a lot of times to wield that power.
Okay. So the major lesson you feel like you learned is that we are actually able to do something about it should we choose to. Is that a fair
Yes.
assessment?
Mhm.
Okay. You mentioned burnout a couple of times, and I do think it's interesting. I would start perhaps with the meaning. So, in terms of definitional, what does it mean, burnout?
Burnout, you can find several definitions of that. So originally it came through a research on medical professionals in emergency rooms. So at some point they experience exhaustion. So there's a kind of consistent exhaustion, not the one that you can take care of by just having a nap, right? It's really kind of the exhaustion that goes day in, day out, and that comes with lack of motivation, with lack of energy. So really that sense of burnout. So that's where it came from. But now it's very widespread, and we apply this to other professions and other industries and other people, all walks of life. It's, a lot of times it's not even work related. At the end of the day, it's kind of a chronic stress reaction. So if you know how you react to stress, and our reactions are quite individual, and you experience more of that consistently as a chronic stress reaction. So you can safely say that you're probably either at the danger of being in burnout or you're in burnout state. So what are those reactions? So for example, when you're stressed, you eat a lot, right? And you see more of that behavioral changes in you. So that's probably how burnout will show yourself to you. Or if you lose your appetite, right? So you lose sleep, for example. So that's what the burnout is. Uh, Exhaustion is though is a red thread. So felt overwhelmed and exhaustion, that chronic exhaustion.
Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting. And I suppose, I mean, the first thing that comes to me is if you do perceive that you meet some of that criteria, so you you need coping mechanisms like food, or you're just really overtired, what would you encourage people to do? Next steps, or
Mhm.
perhaps the first
Well,
step that they can do.
yeah. Well, first of all, if you really want to kind of be sure that you're in burnout, there's questionnaires out there. They're free, so you can look them up and go through them. So there are different kind of sides to that as well. Again, as I said, there are more motivational, more psychological symptoms, some of those physiological systems. So I when I talk about burnout, I like to talk about kind of two levels of support. The first one, the first line of defense, uh, kind of a band-aid, right, is a first aid in burnout is stress management techniques. So if you look at the burnout as a chronic stress mechanism, then I think regardless of whether you put yourself into the burnout category or not, our life is such that we experience stress all the time. So all of us, each and every person would benefit from managing stress, from mastering stress management techniques. So what is stress? We have two nervous systems, right? So one system, what we call fight or flight, fly or fight, and another one that's called rest and digest. And that fight or flight is really kind of our reaction into a life-threatening situation. And it's meant to be very short. So the situation happened, we reacted to that, we evaluated the situation, we make a decision to either attack that or avoid that, and that stress loop is closed then when we made a decision and when we acted on that decision. So what's happening now is that we're assigning those life-threatening meaning to the situations that are not really life-threatening. So now we're really worried about the political situation somewhere in South Africa, I don't know, or it could be wildfires in Australia, or it could be my boss is not in a good mood, right? So we assign that. There's no way for us to close that stress loop, right? So it keeps accumulating, that becomes chronic. So the catch here is to switch from one nervous system to another one, to rest and digest, because this one is not sustainable. It's really meant to be very short-lived. The whole body mobilizes to take that action, and everything else is burning, right? So we're burning our batteries just to sustain that super hyper activated state of mind. But the catch here is that that nervous system doesn't understand words. It does not react to verbal commands. So we need to learn its language, and that language, the language of breathing, the language of images, and the language of actions, actually muscular response. So those are stress management techniques. That's your breath work. That's the bridge between your brain and your body. That's how you send the signal to your body that this is it. The danger has passed. We can switch to a normal mode of operation. That's your visualization, everything that you read about, meditations, short meditation, just sitting there for a few minutes and focusing on quieting down your mind, or your activities. So whether it's a brisk walk, or it's a stretch, or you clench your muscles and you relax your muscles. That's the language that your fight or flight response system understands and can relax and switch into rest and digest mode.
Okay. Thank you for it's a great answer, very detailed. I don't know why I'm picking up on a minor detail, but you did say about the fact that fight or flight, that part of your brain doesn't respond to words. And one of the examples you used was breathing, but then you next said images. It can respond to images. So what would be an example of a way that you can speak to your, I don't know, unconscious mind using images? Are you referring to visualization?
Visualization, yes. So it could be that, you imagine yourself on the beach, or whatever the calm space it is for you. Or it could be a meadow somewhere, with a ray of sun. So it's some kind of a guided meditation usually works for me. So again, if you go to YouTube and search on guided meditation and choose the one that works for you, something that's calming, something that kind of puts you in that situation on all the senses, not the verbal senses, but you feel it, you hear it, you smell it. So it elicits that response that I'm in a calm and a safe space right now.
Okay. And just a follow-up that I'd like to clarify. You said that you, in your story, went through two essentially different professions. If you knew what you know now about burnout, do you think that you would have stayed in those professions, if you acquired the skills that you have now?
It's a good question. I certainly learned a lot from that. I What I want to say, this is something that I want to say for whatever reasons, that I think the most useless reaction or emotion or feeling is the feeling of regret. So whatever decisions I made, they made me the person I am right now, and brought me the experiences that I have right now, and I really love the way it is right now. So there is a way. What I want to say though is that a lot of people who come to us and we work with them, they usually the first blame goes to job. So I'm not happy, I'm overwhelmed, I am stressed because of the job. So for sure it's the job that's the problem there. And in most cases, that's not what it is. Well, especially we work with executives a lot, right? So it took a lot for those people to get where they are. So a lot of effort, a lot of strength, a lot of intensity. And when they come to realization this is a burnout, it's usually kind of a very desperate state. Like I cannot take one more day of that, so I'm going to quit this, right? And I'm going to move on to something that will make me happy. I see that a lot in sales profession, for example, like people in this corporate global sales profession that they're building, they're closing lots of big deals, but somehow they don't feel happy. They feel that they want to have more control. So they quit that and go to startups. Because it's not innovative enough, and they go to startups, and of course they're not happy because startups don't provide, the same level of support, and so on and so forth. So it wasn't a job really, right? So from that point of view, maybe they instead of quitting, they could have first kind of looked at this mind shift and the practices and mindset that would help them design, more of that harmonious state, right, before making those drastic decisions to quit, hard-earned corporate jobs and going into a startup environment. Because what I see is that, and I'm one of those as well, right? So you go from a job to job to job, thinking that that's the problem, but you find yourself in the same situation over and over again. Why? Because you took yourself with you, right? So nothing changed inside. You changed external circumstances, but you're still you. So once you actually understand what it is that you can change internally, first of all, now you're in power, right? Because now you're really in control. It's not the external circumstances that are in control. It's you who's in control. So you feel in control. You're not overwhelmed anymore. And at that point, you could make a decision to switch a job for sure. But that would be a much more controlled kind of decision. I call it productive happiness, right? So yeah, you want to be happy, but you want to do it in a productive manner. So it's like you're not losing all the achievements and all the good things that you have because you have an illusion that this is this one external thing that really makes you unhappy.
Thank you for that. I don't know why, but just following up on, based on the answer that you gave and your story, it made me think, what was the major thing that did it for you, where you went from someone who was perhaps stressed or burnt out, and then you implemented it into your life, and now potentially, you could go and do any stressful job because you're taking yourself with you and you know how to deal with those things. So, what's the significant thing that you did which made a difference for you?
Well, I want to comment on now I can go to any stressful job and do it. I want to say that now I know myself better, so I would actually know which jobs I would want to take or not. And I feel in control and empowered to make that decision because I know how I'm going to feel and what's going to make me happy in that sense. So if I'm put in a situation of just taking any job and thinking that I can, master them all and be happy regardless. I don't think that's the message that I want to convey. I want to say that I know my values, the way of work that works for me, that makes me the most productive, the most harmonious, and I take those options and those opportunities on.
Okay. And in terms of just a little follow up, in terms of the what made the biggest difference for you to go from someone who was stressed to perhaps you're in a better place now, what would that be?
Let's say, so one of the things that I like to talk about, so we talked about the first level of burnout and first aid management, but the second level are those tools that make it more sustainable. So I came across this very interesting practice. Everybody's talking about self-care. It's like, oh, what does it mean? Oh, I'm going to go do my nails, right? And that will make me happy. I talk about self-care as well. So I came across this very interesting practice, and the invitation was to put together a list of 20 activities that I like to do I like to do them not because they are useful, not because they're healthy, not because they serve some, return on investment kind of purpose, not because somebody expects it from me. The only reason for those activities on that list to exist is because they make me happy. I want to do that. So, I took on a challenge and I stopped at number three. So it took me an hour to spit out three of those activities. And then I stopped and said, I cannot do it. I don't remember what I like anymore. I don't remember who I am. And that was a big kind of light bulb moment. I don't remember who I am. I don't remember what I want. I don't remember what I like. It took me 2 weeks to complete that list. I actually had to go way back and said, what did I like when I was 7 years old? What was it? What did I like before I took that job? What did I like before I had a family? So I really had to go down the memory lane to pick those out and put them on the list. So that's what happens, right? That one of the things that we do, we start identify why, we're blaming jobs. We tend to identify ourselves with a job. So I am my job, right? So there's nothing else to me. And if I don't have that job, I don't do that job. If something happens with that job, so everything is like that's a life-threatening situation, right? So we assign that meaning to the job where in a sense one of the bigger realization is that all of us are multi-dimensional, multifaceted, passionate human beings, and for us to be fulfilled and to be happy and harmonious, we cannot neglect other parts of ourselves. We need to give them room. So basically, give yourself permission to be happy. It's a priority, right? So you put that list of 20 things. Again, the only reason for them to exist is to be happy and bring you joy. And you schedule three of those on your calendar each day. So every day you do three of those activities, and they can be small. It can be, it doesn't have to be a worldwide cruise on a, five-star liner. It can be, so the one I like to talk about is you go outside and for 2 minutes you feel the sun on the skin, right? So and you enjoy that. That makes you happy, and you do it for you, only for you. And these are the moments when you recharge your energy, right? And once you do that, the miracle happens. Like, oh, I understand now. Now I'm a better person. People around me are better people when I prioritize my well-being. When I prioritize joy, that actually makes me a better human being, that makes me a better employee, that makes me a better executive, and I feel so much better all around. So and from that state you can make much better decisions, whether it's a job, what kind of changes you want to make in the job. Do you want to downshift? Do you want to upshift, right? So do you want to move? Do you want to change? Do you want to continue to grow? Do you want more money? Do you want less money? So all those things come to place when you give yourself a voice and you start listening to yourself, to your uniqueness, and to what the true you wants.
It's a great answer. I love it. And presumably, if you're not feel or if you're feeling awful or exhausted or stressed, you can look to your list and you can essentially pick things that are appropriate until you feel better or harmonious would be a
Well, to
better
the
way of
point,
putting it.
then, as I said, it's a practice, right? So now you practice it. You actually build this into your schedule. So to the point when now when I feel all of a sudden angry or frustrated or uneasy, my first question to myself is, how am I on my self-care? Did I do my self-care today? So the first point of focus is on me. It's like, what did I do to contribute that? Not because somebody like cut me off on the highway and now I'm angry. It's like, why am I reacting this way? So how am I on my self-care? And most often than not, it's the answer is like, oh, I did not replenish my energy, right? So that's why I'm so irritated. That's why I'm so frustrated. And as I said, the miracle in this is that people actually mirror your reactions. So, all of a sudden, everyone else is reacting the same way. So if you're kind of in a positive, well, not necessarily positive, but a recharged, kind of high energy state, then people around you feel that as well.
Brilliant answer. Thank you. Um, in terms of, you've mentioned a couple of times about your, I don't know if you'd call it a side hustle or your, how you help people in this area. If someone is listening and they're interested, how do you help them and where do they go?
Yeah, so my main channel is LinkedIn. So go ahead and look me up on LinkedIn, Victoria Mensch. I create a lot of post with tips like this with the self-care and the practices. You can reach out and book time with me. We can talk about your situation, and I'm happy to share my experience and figure out where else I can do to help. So LinkedIn is really the main point. For those who want to bring this to their teams and to their companies, we do have a Silicon Valley Executive Academy where we actually run those programs for businesses. And the reason why it's important in there is that it's really the pain is real and the damage is real. They recently posted a study. There's like billions of dollars being lost to unmotivated employees who are really detached from their job. So that actually has a monetary implication as well on the corporate level.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can totally see how it'd be beneficial, especially because people, when they're in that place of burnout, they're neglecting their needs. So any kind of improvement, and especially if you've got expertise, would be beneficial. So thank you for doing that work. Do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
Well, the thought is that, again, as I said, it's really amazing how powerful we are once we switched from that. So I can actually create the life I want. I can actually change the things inside me, and that will go into the changes in my external circumstances. So there's a lot of power in each and every one of us. And we just need to have a will and the time to practice this.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking to me today, and you've been a great guest. So, Victoria, thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Very happy to be here.